Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home. Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Welcome to the Free Birth Society podcast. This is a radical space for women who are ready to celebrate their autonomous choices in birth, motherhood, and beyond. Together, we'll learn about wild birth through personal narrative, we'll explore the politics of birth, and we'll analyze everything that relates to our lives as women from a feminist perspective. Here's your host, Emily Saldea.
It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Women, today is a big day. I have an amazing episode for you, and we have officially launched our 1-year-long midwifery school, Matribirth Midwifery Institute. I am so pumped to be birthing this into the world with my creative partner, Yolanda Norris-Clark, because you have been asking us for this. This has been the thing. After all of this amazing success from RBK, everyone has said, okay, great, now I'm attending, now I'm going to the interviews, now I'm coaching, and I need mentorship. So we have a jam-packed year-long program with really every single facet and aspect that we could possibly think of to make this the best program out there. And there is nothing else like it because we have 3 full months of self-mastery. So RBK was just scratching the surface. This is 3 in-depth months of working through the 15 commitments and how to apply these not just to birth work, but to your life. You know what I always say, midwifery is inside out work. We have to clean you up so that you can become the mature, epic, sovereign midwife of your community, right? And then we move into 3 whole months on the art of the Matribirth midwife. So what is sovereign midwifery? What do you need to know about the landscape of birth, past, present, and where we're moving into so that you can actually be a leader of the sovereign birth paradigm? So we get into every aspect of attending, way more than what we've offered in RBK, because we have, again, 3 whole months to focus on this. Then we're going to move into something we've never offered before in any way. It's going to be 3 months on how to teach sovereign childbirth education, as well as coach women and couples, and conduct our method of birth trauma debriefs. So this is a really big deal because there is a high demand for these things. And then we wrap the year up with our final quarter, which is a 12-week business school, all about launching your lighthouse birth business. All of this is wrapped up in weekly classes for the entire year. There's a monthly class with me. There's a monthly class with Yo. You're also going to have a monthly workshop supported by 5 different spotlight teachers, all experts in their field, all offering supplementary information that's really critical for the work of sovereign midwifery. And then you're also placed in a pod. We're calling it a mentorship pod. So you and 9 other students will be placed in a small group with a mentor. Our mentors are all RBK grads. They're all doing professional birth work in the realms of the sovereign birth paradigm. So this way you're getting the best of both worlds. You're going to be in a large class feeling that powerful movement of all of us together doing this work, but you're not going to be lost. You're going to have these small groups where you're going to be submitting your homework assignment and checking in every single month. There's so much more to say about the program, so I want you to go over to matribirthmidwiferyinstitute.com and check everything out. There's a curriculum page up that goes through every single quarter. It's a massive program, but you're ready for it. The world is ready for this, right? You want to attend, and this is how we're taking you from the sidelines into the arena to get you going. I'm so excited to be offering this, birthing this into the world with my creative partner. You already know her. She's amazing. This is the best of everything that we have to offer. So we're enrolling now. We'll be enrolling over the summer. We start classes September 16th. It's a year-long program. Join us. Again, just head over to www.matribirthmidwiferyinstitute.com. That's MATRIBIRTH, midwiferyinstitute.com. I'll see you on the inside. All right, men, today I am talking to you. This is the episode I have been asked for years, and I am so pumped to be bringing it forth. Today is all about you, the partner. I do what I can in the next hour to offer my transmissions to you of 20 years in birth work and having worked with thousands of fathers and partners to the birthing woman. I'll cover the most common questions and concerns I get from fathers and offer my wisdom on how to show up within the logistics and the energetics of the birthing room so that you can be the best ally in her sovereign birth that you can be. Enjoy. Hi, my name is Emily Saldea, and I am the host of the Free Birth Society podcast, and we are almost complete with season 7, and it's been on my mind for a really long time that I need to create a resource for the birth partner, for the fathers. I have been working with couples and therefore fathers in the sovereign birth world for a very long time, and so I think I have a pretty good grasp of the same questions that get asked and kind of the scope of what men are coming in with, how they are doing their best to navigate around this idea of free birth or birthing outside the system. And I wanted to just take some time to create what hopefully will be a really helpful resource for you, the father, the birth partner, as you navigate this really new terrain that when you first learn about it might sound crazy, but it really isn't. And so my intention today is to take you on a bit of a thorough ride of what I can offer you, what I offer in sessions, and hopefully some of it will apply, help put your mind at ease, and really give you some orientation to how you can show up and be the best ally for the mother of your child, for this amazing woman who is going to give birth and who is choosing, an important path that also is a big path. And it comes with a lot of social risk. It comes with, a lot of need for courage and a lot of processing, unpacking previous dynamics. And yeah, I want to set you up as best as possible to be the greatest support and ally for her that you are willing to be. So we're going to cover a lot of stuff today. The most common questions I want to make sure to get to that I get, from men all the time is, what exactly is my role? I'm not a doctor. In fact, I know nothing about birth. So how the heck am I going to be her only support? What do I need to look out for? How do I keep my wife and my baby safe? What can I expect? What if something goes wrong, right? Of course, the big question. And yeah, what should I do in her birth and what shouldn't I do in her birth? So that's going to be the scope of our next hour or so together. Most men that I have done sessions with, they don't really want to read all the books and take all the courses. And I think that's great. I think that's totally understandable. You are a part of this, of course, and you're not the one going through this. Women, as we become mothers, and particularly if we are becoming mothers again and making a really different choice, even a radical choice, we're going to choose to most likely read everything, listen to all the podcasts, go into all the groups and really immerse ourselves in learning and thinking about this. And it's really okay. And I actually would argue for it, it's even really appropriate that you don't do that. And I don't think you need to do that. I think with some baseline fundamental understanding of the what and the why, you can just kick back and let this be hers and be in a true support role, not necessarily a decision-making role, but a support role. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's get into it. So you might be hearing the rain. It's a rainy Friday evening and I'm tucked away
in my office while my kids nap. So don't mind the rain. Hopefully it's not distracting. Okay. So let's start with what the heck is birth? What the heck is normal birth? What does it even look like? You coming into this might be coming in as a first-time father who, if that is the case, you've probably never seen birth. Why would you have? And so you're going to be, pretty naive, and rightfully so. And really, your only impressions of birth are going to be whatever you've been told through your family lineage, your coworkers, people having babies right now, which are usually like horror stories at the hospital, right? Or what you've seen in media or movies growing up, which are also mostly horror stories in the hospital, as fake as those scenes may be. So I just want to first presence that if you're brand new to birth and your partner wants to have a birth outside the medical system, this very likely could be bringing up a lot for you. And that's really understandable, and it's really okay. So my agenda here is not to get you to be cool with this. It's really just to offer a lot of perspective and, take what lands for you. But it is really understandable that this idea might sit somewhere on the spectrum of, hell no, that's crazy, to, okay, that's interesting, but also maybe pretty intimidating, right? So I think it's important as her birth partner to first be honest with yourself about how this idea is showing up and in you, what it's bringing up, and what do you think about birth so far in your life? What have you heard? You would be wise to explore your own, what's the right word? Narratives that you've taken on, right? The stories that you might be believing about birth. So do you think it's painful and horrible? Do you think it's amazing because maybe you were home birthed? You get what I'm saying. So because the rest of what we're going to talk about is influenced by how you're coming to the table, right? So you also might be a father who your wife or partner might have already had a baby and it might have been in the system, right? So a lot of women, not all women, but a lot of women who come to this sovereign birth idea have first birthed in the system, didn't like it, might be an understatement. She might have really serious trauma and walk with a really horrible story, and was likely robbed of what she's now realizing is possible for her. So if you were there, which let's assume you were, because that's who I'm talking to right now, if you witnessed your first baby, even the first couple babies, be born in a hospital or even in a medical birth center, that also is going to influence how you're arranging around this and what is coming up for you. Meaning, maybe she was told that the C-section saved your baby's life, right? Maybe she was told, and you were told by association, that she hemorrhaged. And thank God she was in the hospital. Maybe you heard the doctor tell her that her hips were too small, or that at 40 weeks, her fluids were far too low for it to be safe for baby. Whatever is the story that you absorbed, it's very likely that you haven't fully unpacked that yet, right? It's not like the world is full of opportunities for you as the father to do that. So again, I just want to presence wherever you're coming from as you come to the table, to this episode and to the idea of sovereign birth, is here with you. It's not a clean slate. There's a lot for you in this exploration, right? And I also want to say that you don't have to agree with her choice to free birth or birth with a independent birth worker. You don't have to get it. You don't even have to understand or imagine that you would make that choice if you were in a female body. That's also okay. I do think that you have to. It doesn't make sense. Not everyone has to, but your family would be best served if you were already in or learned how to get in to a position of support and respect. Now, if you are against this idea, you might have some work to do there. And it is very likely your own fear, your own indoctrination, your own ignorance around birth, and your own, groomed alliance to the medical system that is speaking. And I don't mean any of that offensively, like we all have that until we deprogram. And if your partner has already done more of that work than you have some catch up to do, right? So again, it is okay. Like when I work with a lot of couples, and it's very common that the woman is very clear on what she wants, and the man is like, I trust her. I understand that she will birth best wherever she feels the most relaxed and comfortable. And this is crazy and this is terrifying to me and I'm super intimidated and I have a lot of fear around it. And so that's a great place actually for me to start working with people. You're here, you're watching this episode, right? So you obviously have willingness and I really appreciate that. And I honor that in you sincerely because she needs it. She needs you, right? She chose you. She's having a baby with you. And I would assume you're watching this because you've had the immense privilege and honor to be invited into her birth, right? You're not entitled to her birth. She could go do it in the woods. She could do it in her bathroom and not wake you up. I know lots of women who do that. Sincerely, I know lots of women with less than optimal, you could say, partners who birth in secret and they send their husbands off to work and fake their labor, act like nothing's happening and wait till he's asleep or gone and have the baby alone. But that's not going to be your story because you're here and you obviously have willingness to get prepared. So I appreciate that. And I'm sure your partner does too. Okay, so let's start with what the heck is birth. I want to give you just a really simple overview. To help paint the picture and manage some expectations here. So normal physiological birth has a very wide range of normal. It's much wider than what we have all heard about, from the culture we woke up in. And so things like multi-day labors or very fast labors, things like her waters being broken for many, many days, things like meconium, which is the baby's first poop, happening in the labor while she's still pregnant, is very common or very, very normal. Different presentations like baby coming out breech or coming out, with a nuchal hand or coming out with a nuchal cord, the cord being wrapped around the baby's neck, the baby being born blue, right? That might sound scary. It just means they're oxygenated. It's great. So there's so many normal things about birth that have been taught to us as scary and just cause for intervention and surgery. So I want to unpack some of that for you so that you also can walk with a bit of a wider understanding of the full scope, really, of birth as much as possible in an hour episode. So a quote from one of my mentors is, "There's as many variations of normal as there are women." It's by Sister Morningstar. And I really love that and find that to be true. 20 years in this birth work, and I am constantly realizing that women and babies are far more capable of experiencing normal birth than I have been led to believe. So Yolanda, my creative partner, she has a line that she says frequently that I want to share with you, which is, "Every birth is exactly the same and completely different." And I love that because it's a bit of a paradox and it's just totally true. So there are a couple of different ways that birth starts. And gestationally, in the medical world, they're going to say gestation is really only appropriate to birth a baby between 38 and 42 weeks. But the range of normal is much wider than that. And I have seen and know of plenty of babies to be born actually as early as 33 weeks and stay at home and survive and thrive. And then, of course, on the other end of the spectrum, I've known mothers, I've supported mothers, and I've seen mothers birth 44 weeks. It's not super common, but it definitely happens. There's even a couple stories of 45 weeks. So, wow, talk about the difference, right, of this little window to what is actually biologically normal and not uncommon, you could say. So maybe I should first, before I get into birth, just mention wild pregnancy. So wild pregnancy is this coined term by Yolanda, the woman I referenced earlier, Yolanda Norris Clark. And wild pregnancy, you might already know this, it just means to choose to experience pregnancy without involving the medical system, surveillance technology like ultrasounds, diagnostic testing. It's just to experience pregnancy as a totally integrated, normal part of a woman's life, okay? So in the beginning, the idea that a woman would be pregnant and not go see a doctor and not have a doctor tell her how the baby's doing, as if that was possible, and do labs and, essentially surrender herself to be a little science experiment, all in this under this umbrella that it's needed, is total nonsense. It's an extremely profitable business, and it is shockingly non-evidence-based. So, you can take our complete guide to free birth if you want to get more into this. There's books you can read, but I just want to assume here that you're here for a very quick snapshot, peripheral understanding of, the hard and true basics of what you need to know. So your partner might be choosing a wild pregnancy, and there's a lot of opportunity there for her to take responsibility for her life, her movement, her nutrition, her internal universe. And it's really deep work. And it's often, it can feel very lonely to be doing that work because she is probably not surrounded with women also making that choice. And as I mentioned earlier, there can feel like a lot of social risk for her, and even by extension for you, to be making these really counter to mainstream, choices, right? Like the ultrasound. How could we possibly know our baby's okay without blasting our unborn fetus with really harmful, sound waves that are proven again and again and again to heat up the tissue, distort the tissue, harm fetal tissue. And that might be something you want to look more into, because ultrasound technology is not without great risk and danger, and something that, at least from where I sit, is decreasing in popularity as more and more of the studies are coming out. So she might be making that choice, and there isn't much for you to do other than love her, support her, witness her. It's deep work for her. It is often experienced as quite dark, spiritual, internal work to take that much responsibility and really get that clear on making conscious choices. So it's big work for the woman, and by extension, it might also be for you, for a couple to sit in the not knowing and to consciously unravel their ties to this technocratic model of care that suggests that we need technology for us to feel okay about her being pregnant. So it's big work, lots to think on, but she doesn't need anything. She might want something, and that's for her to decide and for, her to potentially talk to you about. But nothing that has been man-made, nothing that's been invented is required for a mammal to grow a pregnancy and to allow a baby to release from her womb, right? Of course not. These ultrasounds aren't even very old. Testing is not very old, right? All of this, medical shenanigans is all quite recent, and we really were doing just fine beforehand. So, I guess I'll touch on that. There's obviously a cultural myth that women were just dying in droves before, the guy in the lab coat started saving us all. And that really has been disproven again and again and again, but no one seems to care. There's a book called Pushed by Jennifer Block. It's a research book, and she explains that it is just totally not true at all. And yet there's still this myth, right, through every generation, this sense that we need to go to the hospital to be safe. And it's not true at all. No route, and certainly no establishment, has eradicated fetal death. And actually, maternal death in the system is alarmingly high. and not something we see in the sovereign birth world, which I think carries a lot of worthiness to explore. Okay, so let's shift into what is birth. What does it look like? So, it's kind of popular to break birth into these stages of early birth and then active, early labor, and then active, and then into transition, and then emergence. So I'm just going to stick with that because that might be language you're familiar with. But essentially, labor will kick off at some point, when the baby is ready. And it really is about the baby being ready, less so perhaps about the mother. And so the baby will signal that he or she's ready to rock. And the mom will either start to have sensations and have uterine contractions, or it might be that her waters will leak or release to let her know that things are starting. And so either way, it's a totally normal way to start. And if her water's open, her sensations may begin soon after, or they might not. Some women, their water's open and they don't feel sensations for days. And I would definitely say that is normal. That is not concerning to me. That's a totally normal way. And in some ways, I could argue for why that's a really nice way to start a labor, because you get like a notice, to get everything ready before it's go time. So then on the other end of the spectrum, some women go to bed and they wake up at 3 a.m., falling to their knees out of the bed because it's on, just out of nowhere. It's just on, full on sensations, back to back. Whew. So of course, lots of variations, but essentially she will know it's on when her sensations are requiring her full attention, right? So some women have non-baby producing sensations for weeks before the actual baby producing sensations, and other women won't feel anything, and then boom, it's on. So it'll be very obvious when she's actually in the birth process, because she will be making noise, almost for sure. I guess it's possible she'd be silent, but most women make noise. And she will be, she'll just be in it, she'll be focused. She will not be acting like her normal self. It's primal and it's big. It's really internal. And you will notice that the deeper into the birth portal she goes, what's actually happening is she's dropping down into her theta brain waves. So she's going down into a state of hypnosis. And we really want to support that, because that's where the magic happens. And it is magic. And the hormones that get released when she's down in theta are incredibly helpful. They offer pain relief. They offer kind of this dream state. And so it helps her cope, and it helps her travel and really have what many women would describe as a psychedelic experience. So what that will look like to you is she might not want to talk anymore. Early labor is like, oh yeah, that wasn't so bad. Oh, can you make me some orange juice? Oh yeah, tell my dad that, I'm doing great. When she's really in it, she's not doing that stuff. She's not thinking about other people. She's most likely not wanting to make eye contact with you. Stuff that maybe she liked that you were doing for her in early labor might not be helpful to her anymore. And so your job at this point, is really just to pay attention and to give her your presence, so that you can tune in to her energy, right? It's not complicated. It's really not. It's pretty obvious if you're paying attention, and if you have any skill at all in breathing and tuning your awareness towards something, you're going to be great. I mean that sincerely, and if you're a pretty anxious guy, and if you're pretty ungrounded and, like really nervous, then you guys might want to consider having a third person there. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you're not super good at kind of managing your own self, it might be really challenging for you to be in that position. So that might be a really honest conversation the two of you should have. And it is possible that, us at Free Birth Society would be able to help you both find somebody that clicks with your family and could support you. Okay, so yeah, active labor, she's in it. Maybe she's throwing up, maybe there's fluids, maybe there's some blood. She's not going to be like gushing blood, but there's definitely blood. Like you might see it running down her legs if her waters are open, and that's all great. Just like the dog and the zebra and the monkey and the deer, she's gonna wiggle around and moan and make some noise and have some blood to get that baby down. And that's totally great. She will not need much from you, most likely. It's some really, really basic stuff. This is the only time I ever use this comparison because it's not great to pitch this idea of being sick, but I'm just going to go there for a second because I find it helpful. Surely you've been with your partner when she's been sick before. I mean, like sick as a dog, like food poisoning, right? Or just like a hardcore flu or whatever. So go there in your mind. And what was that like? How did you help her through that? You can't make her stop puking, right? You can't make any of this happen, but you can bring her the clean washcloth. You can bring her the water, you can heat up the broth, you can change the sheets, you can replenish the paper towels and the toilet paper, you can take care of your other kids or your pets. And it really is the same thing. You can't really do much for her to get the baby out, but you're going to support the perimeter, right? You're going to support the space, okay? You're going to take everything off her plate so that she can go inside because that's where she needs to be for however long her birth process is. And when she looks up at you, she needs to see reassurance. She needs to see a smile. And she might need to hear you're doing it. You're doing it. You're bringing your baby here. That's it. It's not very much. But being aware of our faces when we are in the room with a birthing mother is quite important. And being aware of those little micro things that we're doing, right? So I'll get back to the stages of birth in a minute. But while I'm here, what are these little things like being aware of your breath, being aware of your noises? Like when you text, is it making noise? Oh my God. Does your camera have a click on it? Are you eating around her? Is there food heating up around her? Is the door creaking? Those little things really matter to most women. Some women know how to tune that stuff out, but I'd say for most, it feels quite disruptive. And so those little things, is her water full? And noticing what's working for her. Because there will be periods of time, most likely, I can't speak for everyone, obviously, but I'd say for the average woman, especially a first-time mom, but I just had my second and I was out to lunch for a good part of it and definitely felt very lost. So I think it can happen to any birth for any number of child. But there are going to be these moments where she is upside down and where she resists and where she doesn't know what's going on and where she might feel fear. She might panic. She might look at you and say, I don't know if the baby's okay. I think the baby's stuck. We make up all sorts of interesting, dramatic things in our birth process. I mean, I'm not going to say I've heard it all, but I've heard some pretty wild stuff. I've had more than I could count, moms call me in their birth process saying, my bladder's coming out, or all sorts of weird stuff. It's not it at all. It just is a wild time. And if it's new terrain for her / you, it's new terrain, and that's really sensitive and really vulnerable. And so our minds will make stuff up. So I'm going to talk about transfer in a little bit and the reasons of transfer and all of that. But in terms of the supporting the energetics, the most present and available energetically and physically that you can be is the goal. And then let her move through that. meaning, there's going to be hours where she might want you really close, and there's going to be moments or minutes where she wants to be alone in the bathroom. And yeah, that's totally great. That's totally normal. And your job is the energetics and the logistics, especially if you're the only person there. Okay, so let's keep cruising through. So now she is heading into what people call transition, which is an interesting time in the birth process. Things change. She's going to come out of that dream state where she's like, and she's like, we'll do that forever for like a full minute. And then in between, she just like won't even look. Maybe she just takes a sip of water, and it's just very dreamy, very kind of eyes closed. She's really in another state. I mean, it's an altered consciousness. And then for most women, when she heads into transition and getting close to pushing or even pushing, things change. Hormonally, things change. It's the only time in an undisturbed birth where she's going to get a rush of adrenaline on purpose. And what's happening primally is like mama bear is about to drop a baby, right? And so the mama tiger, the mama lion is like, okay, things are about to go down. My little cub or cubs are about to, come out of me. So am I okay? Am I safe? Are we good in my environment? So that's often the time where she kind of snaps out of that, kind of dreamy theta state. And she might start barking orders, put that towel down. Don't do that. Fill that up. Where's my kid? She might start getting cagey. I mean, sometimes women are like climbing out of their skin, like they'd climb walls if they could at that stage. I mean, you'll often hear women be like, I just can't get comfortable, which, we're probably way past that time. And they're probably going to bark orders at you, and that's just totally great. And so you are there, in a beautiful act of service to witness, an everyday miracle, to witness, your wife being an instrument of God, really. This woman is bringing life to this planet, and it is wild. It is so profound. It is so big, even without the cultural context of also how, unique and special this choice is. You getting to sit at the feet of her doing this, it is just, you're going to be blown away. And it is extremely likely that you will experience more love and connection and intimacy and vulnerability and awe than you've ever felt in your life. And I see that again and again and again and again with couples who make this choice and when the men really show up. It's so precious what is available to you both as a couple. And it's really unique because in every other birth setting, there's other authorities and the father just is totally cut out. It sucks. And you might be a father who's experienced that. Like at the hospital, give me a break. You don't matter. The only thing they make you do is engage you to abuse her and hold her legs up while she's drugged and then cut the cord when she didn't even want that. It's really gnarly. And you just don't matter. You're not involved at all. It's crazy. And then, birth centers are I guess we could argue could be a little bit better. But really, you'll see what I mean once you've gone through this. You get to step into being her anchor and being her tree, which is an analogy I use a lot for fathers that I think is so beautiful and one I use for myself as an attendant. And it's profound what you will do for your family and the story of your family and what your child will know of you by being in this role of service to the child's mother. It's emotional. It's really, you'll see. Look, I'm crying. It's really beautiful. Okay, so transition is wild and it's okay. It's going to get crazy, most likely. Women scream. And this is often the time when they hit edges, of course, right? Where they are on a really deep level. There's this I wouldn't say it's necessarily conscious when it's happening, but on some level, it's like shit's getting real. There's no going back. A baby has to come out of me, and I'm scared, right? And so from that place, it might be, get me out of here. This is a terrible idea. I want an epidural. Cut that baby out of me. I'm out. Baby's stuck. Something's wrong. I mean, all of those phrases are really normal to say at this stage. And, you know, for what it's worth, when a woman says that in my presence, I am like, yeah, I know. That makes sense. And that's it. I'm just meeting her with, yeah, this is really big work. Your baby's not stuck. You're doing it. One more hour, right? Something, whatever comes up. Less is more with input. She doesn't need you to tell her to breathe. She doesn't need you to really do any of that. And she'll let you know if she does. This is another thing probably worth saying, you know, because there's this deep cultural story that women are hysterical. We're hysterical on our periods, right? We're so hormonal, and we're hysterical in labor or birth. And yeah, okay, in a way, I could see in a way where some of that comes from. And also, it's not quite right. Women are completely capable at any point of snapping out of where they are and having a real conversation. I mean, I've had women, you know, with bulging bags coming out of their yoni, you know, meaning the baby's right there, the bag is about to pop, you know, FaceTiming me, asking me questions because they didn't know if it was okay or not. I mean, women can snap out of, oh, I don't know, I can't do it, to, whoa, okay, a lot of blood just came out. Let's assess this, or whatever. So you can really trust her that she's still her. She's still her, and she's going to communicate with you if something feels off. Now, here's the thing. This is kind of the rub. Things are going to feel off, and it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just going to feel wrong, potentially. I have a joke. I mean, I think it's funny. In my second birth, I did not find my first birth painful at all. And in my second birth, I did. Whew! Oh my gosh, like excruciating. And I kept saying to my husband, I was walking around my bathroom, kind of like trying to come to terms with how horrible it was, to be honest. And I kept saying to him, I got the wrong order. Like, God gave me the wrong order. Like, this was not the birth I was supposed to have. I got the wrong order. So funny. You can't get the wrong order, right? It is what it is. So it is normal for her to freak out and to doubt herself. And you don't ever really know what's going on internally. So a lot of women look like they're really suffering, and they'll even look like they're kind of talking in tongues and stuff when you are observing her. And then I'll find out later when I debrief with her that she was having a great time and that she was loving it on the inside. And one of my favorite stories or favorite births I've ever attended in my life, just because it shows this point so perfectly, which I'll share with you so that you can keep it in your head when you see your woman go through transition. So I got called to a birth in LA, and this mom, it was her first baby, but it was going fast. And sometimes when they go fast, there can be kind of like all the sensations can unfold at once. So it's pretty intense. So I showed up, I rush over there, and I show up, and she is on the bed on all fours, naked, on all fours, with a puke bucket on Chuck's pads, because this poor woman is puking and pooping uncontrollably at the same time. I mean, it was on. Like, that's a little bit more extreme than the average, okay? So it was on, I mean, sweating, so hardcore, and she was pushing. And so, you know, I show up and I get the lay of the land, and it looks really intense, as you could imagine. And so I'm sitting there kind of, you know, just sensing the vibes, getting a feel of it. And I'm making up this story. Oh man, this woman is having a hard time. Like, this is, I'm just projecting, like, wow, she is suffering. okay, safe assumption based on what I just described. But then she gets a break. She's on all fours, sweat's pouring down, and she's just finished puking in the bucket. And just the most raw, right? Like, that's the most raw a human can be. Come on. And she looks up at me and she goes, this really isn't so bad. And she goes back to puking. And I was like, oh, she's totally fine. She's great. Like, I was just making that up because that looks insane. So I always love to remember that, because we, as the outside, as the, not birthing woman attending, we just don't know what's going on in there. And we can trust that she will tell us what she needs. And that's really the big thing here. I mean, zooming out, we could apply that to this entire conversation. If she's choosing a wild pregnancy, she's a whole adult woman, right? I am going to hope and pray that you really understand that. She is a whole adult woman who is growing a baby for the world, for your family. How beautiful. She is making the pregnancy choices she's making. Excuse me. She's making the birth choices she's making. And she's a whole adult human who is totally capable of that. And when we exalt her in her total ability to do what she's choosing to do, right, she will emerge feeling so beautifully supported in her ability to become a mother. And that's what we need. We need more of that on this planet, right? So transition, it can be nuts. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's long. Sometimes she gets rests, and that's not something allowed in the system. And so that doesn't mean baby's stuck. There's no such thing as a stalled labor. That's all total nonsense. But babies will rest in the birth process, and they will give mom rest in the birth process. So all of that is great and fine. There's no reason to rush any of it. You can't anyway. And then at some point, she is going to start uncontrollably releasing the baby. So this is like kind of a vulgar description, but it is the best way of describing it. It is like the vagina is throwing up. You can't stop it. It is just, the uterus is just like convulsing out this baby, and the baby's participating too. So I probably should have said that at the beginning, but you probably have never had anyone explain what an actual contraction is. So it's really cool. And in simplistic terms, there are tendons running up and down the uterus and at the bottom as well. And when the hormones essentially set off the sensation, the contraction will contract and it will pull up the uterus. And so as it's doing that, it is doing two things. It is stitching together the fundus, which is the top part of the uterus. And then it is also pulling open the cervix. So if you imagine like a balloon, right? There's kind of like the balloon bottom. That's the cervix. And the balloon, as it gets pulled up, that little bottom of the balloon thing gets open. And the baby's head, is pushing on it as well and helps with the pressure and all of that. But that's it. It's like pretty simple what's happening. The whole thing's fairly straightforward. And it can take really, really long for that process, or it can take a very short amount of time. And really neither matter. Long births are harder, I would say, in some ways, because there is more time to self-sabotage. Short births can be hard in their own right, not for everyone, but because they can be experienced as more painful or more scary, because there isn't as much time to integrate as you're moving through the phases, right? Some women have 20-minute births or an hour, 2-hour births. That's really fast, especially if it's your first time. So, every way that it unfolds comes with its own stuff. But if you're with your partner, it's her first birth, and she has a 3, 4, 5, 6 day birth, it's going to get probably pretty heady. She's going to go through a lot of, switchbacks about this. And it is a epic test of will and willingness to allow and surrender. And I would say, observationally, the longer a birth is, the chances that she makes up that something is wrong and gets exhausted and doesn't want to do it anymore or whatever, gets higher. So she's really going to need you if it's a longer birth, for sure. Okay, so let's move into emergence. So she's pushing. You're going to start to see the baby's head. The baby's coming down. I mean, most likely the head. Obviously, it could be other body parts. You might see a hand first. You might see a forehead. You might see a mouth. You might see a bum. You might see a foot. Okay, most likely, in most births, it's going to be a head. And it's usually this part. So it doesn't look like, you have like no idea what you're looking at first. But it's coming down and it's starting to come down the canal. And you are going to see it rock, most likely. It'll like, and then come back up, and then come back up. And that's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the, head is stretching open the yoni. It's all great. It's giving her time. There's really no rush at all with this. And so then at some point, the head is going to come down and through, and it's going to stay out. And it'll make this kind of like movement. And it will stay out, and the range of normal here is quite wide as well. With every sensation, the head will likely either fly out, right? There's just like so much nuance in all of this because every woman is different. Every birth is different. Sometimes babies just fly out like a little wet fish in one go. And other babies take a long time, and mom really has to work to get baby out. So, I mean, in my first birth, my daughter's head was completely out and her body did not come out for 11 minutes. That was her story. That was her normal. Nothing was wrong. That is unheard of in the system. I would have absolutely, if I had even gotten to that point, which I wouldn't have because there was meconium and open waters and a 52-hour labor, and I already would have had a C-section. But even if I had gotten to that point, they would have cut my perineum to force her out, and they would have pulled her out or suctioned her out. And a lot of harm would have been done, and we would have missed out on everything. So there's a wide range of normal emergence. And then at some point, your baby comes out, and we want to let mom lead in this. It's actually really safest if she leads. It is the most biologically protective to both mother and baby for her to be in charge of emergence and getting her baby. Now, that doesn't mean you can't help, just follow her lead. It's very common for women to get stuck in positions where they're like, maybe they wanted to catch their baby and they dreamed of that, but then they get in a position hanging on the bed, and there's like no way she's moving. It's fine. Of course, you can grab baby and pass baby to her. These are great conversations to have with her beforehand so that you understand her expectations. It might be really important to her for her to discover the sex of the baby. And so you wouldn't want to announce that if you see the genitals first. And she might not care about that. I care about that. I know lots of women that care about that. So that might be something for her to think on. It's really important to me that I get to claim those first moments with my baby. And it's nothing against my husband. He's right there next to me. But it feels really sacred, and I treasure it very much. So that may or may not be shared with your partner. Anyway, so you're going to help however you can. Baby's out, she will receive her baby in the time frame that she is ready for. Lots of women take a pause, baby's out, and they don't grab their babies right away. And that's fine. It might feel like a long time, but it's usually just a couple seconds or 20 seconds. But she will. She knows what happened. She will get her baby, and she will meet her baby. And so she'll go through all these beautiful kind of unconscious primal steps where she looks at her baby and kisses her baby and brings her baby to her heart, comforts her baby, talks to her baby. At some point, she'll look at the genitals. Most women do not care right away. They're just like so stoked it's over and just want to look and take a minute. And there's just no rush at this beautiful point. If it's just the two of you, it would be wise of you to grab the time of baby's emergence. Little tricks I have is, well, if you're filming, you will most likely have a timestamp within your video. So maybe you've set up a film thing somewhere. Don't be like holding the phone filming her. Ideally, you'd set it up so that your hands are available for her and your baby. And then another option is if your phone's right next to you, you can just screenshot. You know how you can just screenshot the top of your phone and just like baby's out, screenshot, and then that saves the time within your phone. Or of course you could write it down. You could put it in your notes, on your phone. But that's a nice thing for you to think about because she's not going to be thinking about that. So time of emergence is when the entire body is out, not the head, when everything's out. And then depending on everything, you'll want to turn any fans off if there's any on. The room should be warm for baby, more so than for her. And the mom might like a towel or a blanket. If she's birthing in the water, then yeah, she might want a towel, but she'll probably want to get out of the water pretty quickly because the towel gets cold. And it's just, once the baby's out, it's not super comfortable to stay in there. And so you're very hands-on anytime she's moving, because it's very likely that she'll feel kind of weak, shaky, sore, and it's a lot to juggle. The placenta's still inside her in most cases. She's holding this brand new slippery baby. It's a lot. So stay close to her for the first couple of hours. If she gets up to go pee, I would go with her. If she gets in the shower, I would go with her, because it can be normal for a woman to faint, or less dramatic than that, to just get weak and maybe even buckle a little and go down to her knees or whatever. That's scary to see, of course. And I do think you can help prevent that by helping her keep it really slow. Do not rush her in any way. Do not make her move. Yeah. And if she is insistent, on doing that stuff or whatever, if she doesn't want to release her bladder, there at the bed, and she's really firm on going, of course, just help her, hold the baby while she does her thing. And I wouldn't have the water in the shower be very hot, because sometimes her getting really hot postpartum can help facilitate fainting. So fainting is not hemorrhaging. I'm not saying it's not scary to look at, but as long as she comes right back, which has always been my experience, it's really not that uncommon. And that is just good information that we just want to help her regulate, move her slow. We're going to replenish her with water and broth and whatever. And it can take a minute for a mom to kind of fully come back, on all the levels in which she just traveled. So again, you're the guardian of the logistics and the energetics. So what's the vibe in the room? Can the lights, be turned back down? Can it be warmer in the room? Does she need some nourishment? Maybe she needs some touch. If she's shaky and kind of a little out of it, I would definitely go to her feet, and I would just get really present with her and just see what needs to be done. This again, like, it is not rocket science. It is really intuitive, loving energy, and you're her guy. Like, how to love her, how to be with her, and that's it. That's really it. You don't have to have like medical training to be with a woman in birth. At all. Okay, so that's normal birth. quick round. And baby will transition. Every baby transitions differently, but especially babies born in peace, they might take a while. They don't have to rush, and that's important, and that's really okay. So lots of babies don't come out screaming and pink and all of that like you see in the movies. So some babies can take, 5 minutes, even longer. I've heard of babies transitioning, for even 10, 15 minutes. there's magic in the cord that we're not seeing and that we, don't understand. But what is happening for sure is baby's out, and now the placenta is going to release quite a bit of really what was the baby's blood volume that the placenta held onto. So the placenta gives the baby essentially a blood transfusion as the baby transitions to the outer world. And so in that, they're receiving oxygen right through the cord, pulsed by the mother's heart. It's just so beautiful. And it's getting all of the baby's organs online in a way that they haven't had to be yet. And so it really is a transition. It's really like the baby coming into life. And every baby does that a little different. Some babies come out, immediate cry, just making it known. And other babies don't. And they just kind of like take their time to claim their breath. So babies don't need to be suctioned. They need to learn how to breathe on their own. They need to, I could get into a whole thing about the spiritual context of this, but I just think it's so, I think it is so profound to marinate on this idea of your baby walking with this story at his back or her back, that she knew how to get born and she claimed her breath. Like she chose this life and did it, right? Versus so many of us from our generation and previous walk with this story that I couldn't get born, or I hurt my mom, or I needed resuscitation. And I think there's a really deep, deep, deep spiritual fracture that many of us have to reckon with when those stories are at our back. And it's just so interesting to me to think about these epic babies who don't get interfered with at all and who don't get suctioned. They sneeze and they cry. That's how they get their fluids out, right? Like there's all built-in systems for these little baby animals to survive. Duh, right? It's just beautiful. So baby transitions, takes the time that they take. And now they're going to get snuggly with mom, and it's amazing. And you'll be in such awe, and maybe you'll take some pictures, and that's it. And then the next thing to do is for the mother to birth the placenta, and then, to establish some breastfeeding. So the placenta is kind of the last piece where you really do have a part for sure. I would say if it's been about 40 minutes after the birth and the placenta hasn't come out and, the mom hasn't like gotten it out, then I think it's great as the partner to say, hey babe, let's start thinking about the placenta. Birth's not over. What should we do? And you're going to go get some sort of a popcorn bowl or something, and you're going to help her focus. It's time to get the placenta out. I hear all these stories of these free birthing women where their placentas take many, many hours or even days and whatever. It's very interesting to me because I don't understand why it's taking so long. Because if you are actively working to birth the placenta, it really should be coming out within the first 1 to 2 hours. And I think it's really wise to, in a totally non-stressful, totally not dramatic way, I think it's extremely wise for you to support her in completing the birth, right? Let's get this puppy out. So that's all I think I'm going to say about the placenta. She'll birth it. She might need to squat, cough, pull. That's fine. She might need to work a little bit. That can throw some women off if they don't know that. And you might be just holding the baby at this point, or just like giving her the stuff that she needs, because it's kind of hard to move around. She just birthed. And then after that, placenta's out. It's going to stay attached to baby till you guys are ready to sever the cord in some way, shape, or form, and then get tucked in. And by this point, if she's not already breastfeeding, it's very likely the baby's going to start rooting around and, looking for her nipple. And then you'll just go make her some food if it's just the two of you. What else is there to say about the placenta? So, okay, I can touch on the cord. So easy. Like the placenta and the cord situation, I think feels really mysterious to a lot of people new to this, and it's just totally not. It's no big deal. So anything sharp can cut the cord, and I have a whole episode on your 3 options, but the brass tacks are whenever she's ready. I mean, I would give it at least a half hour just to make sure it's all happened. But after that, whenever mom's ready, you just go get something sharp. You can totally throw it in hot water and boil it for 10 minutes. Knife, scissors, it doesn't matter. And then ideally, you guys would have a sterile cord clamp. That's certainly my preference so that no blood ever leaks from the fetal side. People do like ties and other stuff, but I'm not into that. And then if that's the route you guys are going to take, you put the clamp on baby side, just about 6 inches, nothing crazy. Like you can't mess it up. Don't do it too close. And long would be weird and complicated with the diaper. So just like 6 inches and clamp first. And then once you clamp, you can't mess that up. It's just like literally like that. And then cut. And that's it. And then you'll go put the placenta in the fridge or something for her, or the freezer, depending on her plans for it. Or maybe she wants to see it. And then if you guys are going to burn the cord, you just need some non-toxic candles, and you literally just burn the cord. I mean, it's really simple. Things to look out for is it can pop and kind of smell a little bit, and it might take like 10, 15, even 20 minutes. The advantage of burning is it cauterizes the cord, which is kind of nice because then you can skip the clamp. It's just up to you guys and what you feel like you're interested in and have the bandwidth for. It's a bit more of a to-do to burn. The, cutting and clamping is pretty straightforward and fast. Both are great. Both are easy. And then the third option is some women do a lotus birth, which is where they don't sever it and they keep the placenta attached to the baby. But in that case, you would need to treat the placenta with herbs to facilitate it drying out and smelling okay, because it is an organ that will begin to rot since it's exposed to the air. And so that's called lotus birth. She can figure out the details of that. All right. So let's get into the big question. What if something goes wrong? And the what ifs. How do I keep my woman safe? What do I need to look out for? So really what I want to say about this is your partner lives in her own body, right? And so the fact that you don't know all of these things can feel really intimidating, because we've all been, really taught to not only fear childbirth, but there's a lot of, very serious consequences, taught to us about birth, and that it just feels so risky, and, everyone's on the verge of death all the time. And it is a really big deal, spiritually and physically. And it also works very straightforward most of the time. Of course, not every time. Every path has risk. But she lives in her own body. So if something like a true emergency, which there's very few, and they're very rare, but if an emergency were to occur, and I want to just specify, this might be obvious, but I would say an emergency is something presenting that if the pregnancy is not ended with surgery soon, a fatality is likely to occur, whether it's the baby or the mother or both, right? I mean, that's an emergency. Death is on the line, most likely. We can never say for sure, but most likely. So it's a very small list. That would be things like a uterine rupture. Well, yeah, if the uterus ruptures, that's really serious, potentially fatal for sure, to really potentially both, I guess you could say. And she needs medical attention. Absolutely. But you're not going to miss a uterine rupture. I mean, I've never seen it. It's extremely rare. It would be excruciatingly painful. And yeah, there's all sorts of symptoms that are really, really obvious. Same with the placental abruption. There would be a ton of blood, the placenta coming off of the uterine lining. That's very serious. It could very likely be fatal to the baby, and that would require getting the baby out right away. What else is there? Cord prolapse. If the cord falls out first with no baby, like following, we know stories where the baby comes with the cord and the babies survive, but it's very likely if the cord comes with no baby, then it could potentially, be very serious for both of them. And so in that situation, you're going to she's going to know, is my point. She's going to know before you're going to know. So you don't need to become a doctor because you're going to be there. And if she happens to be one of the very, very, very rare women who have a serious complication, she's going to be the first to know. It's not mysterious. All of these present quite obvious. You know, to the best of my knowledge, I'm saying that in my experience. I mean, I could keep going. There's really just a few. There's, okay, a transverse lie. If the baby is truly laying this way at the time of delivery, it's not going to be deliverable. Although I know women who had a true transverse lie at the beginning of labor, and the contractions got the baby into position, which is interesting. Placenta previa, you know, everyone's obsessed with that because it's massively overdiagnosed via ultrasound at 20 weeks. It makes no sense. But that's when the placenta is covering the cervix, and the baby theoretically wouldn't be able to get out because the placenta would be blocking its exit. And that would almost for sure have bleeding in her third trimester, and maybe even further. Am I missing any? I mean, those are the main ones. I mean, there's shoulder dystocia where the baby is going to get born to a certain point and then get stuck and not be able to finish its restitution, and its shoulder's going to get hooked. And extremely rare. I've never seen it in a sovereign birth. And from what I know about it, it would require outside hands to help get in there and rock the baby's shoulders to help the baby get loose. But again, I mean, that would be pretty instinctual. Like if your baby's stuck and not coming and trying to come and not coming, and you know, the mom was noticing that this like wasn't working, you know, she's probably going to change positions to try to widen open her hips, and she might ask you to help. And so, you know, it's an interesting balance, because on the one hand, I think it's very reasonable to want to learn about the complications and emergencies so that you can be prepared. And they're so rare, they're so unlikely, that it's a fine line of where do you want to put a lot of your education and attention. And, you know, a lot of people will use the potential of something going wrong as reason to not allow a normal biological birth that works perfectly in the vast majority of cases. So I'm certainly not making light of when it is amazing that women have access to surgery. You know, I do believe that in a very small number of stories, that is very likely life-saving. And that's amazing that we have that available to us. There's also preterm labor where, you know, preterm, I guess, is a subjective notion, but there is when the baby is beginning its birth process, and it will likely not survive without medical care. And that's going to be, well, you know, I can't say anything black and white, but, you know, a baby before 33, 34 weeks is almost for sure not going to survive at home. Yeah. And if it is past that, I mean, and everyone makes different choices, you know, that's a whole nother conversation, but I know women who would birth at home no matter what, and then assess their baby and understand that if their baby came in second trimester, they would not fight death, right? And that's a really big spiritual, highly subjective conversation, you know, that every family needs to figure out for themselves of when do you want, where's your lines to all of this, and when would you want to seek medical care, if at all? You know, I know some families and some religious, you know, families who that's not on the table at any point, you know, all the way to, I know women who will do it very quickly. And so, yeah, that's a big conversation. Okay, hopefully this is helpful. Okay, we're at the hour. Yeah, so just to tie up the what if conversation, it's extremely unlikely. And if something starts to present, it will, in almost all cases, of the rare cases, have very obvious, very serious symptoms, and there's not a lot of guesswork. If a cord falls out, go to the hospital. If her uterus ruptures, go to the hospital. If the placenta, falls off her uterine lining, go to the hospital. If she has a transverse lie and a little arm comes out, yeah, go to the hospital. Right? I mean, that's kind of obvious. People always say like, well, what's the backup plan? What's plan B? It's like, well, it's pretty obvious. If something needs to become medicalized, we know where to go, right? Okay. What else? I mean, it's impossible for me to cover every single potential scenario, obviously, in this episode. And the really big thing I wanted to get across to you as a father, a partner, and potentially the sole person for her is you have an enormous role, and it's largely energetic. There isn't a lot you really need to know, in my opinion, because it's not a heady thing. You're being invited in to be the oak tree. And the oak tree is this beautiful vision that I love to pass to partners. Like I said earlier, I use it for myself, and it's a little cheesy, but the idea is you're the oak tree in the birthing room. So what does that mean? That means that you have this beautiful, grounded tree trunk, right? You are in the room. She might be flying off in the freaking cosmos or in a hellscape or whatever. She might be out somewhere else in the spirit world, but you are in the room. And your job is to be in the room. So you're this beautiful, strong, grounded oak tree. And you have branches that go all the way down, down, down into the earth, right? And you can feel that down through your spine, down through your sacrum. You are rooted and grounded. You are breathing. You can feel your feet on the ground. You are in the room. That's where you belong, right? Logistically and energetically. And you have all these beautiful branches of support, right? Where all the squirrels and birds and everyone likes to come hang out because they feel so safe in these branches. And you're just there. You're being this beautiful, grounded oak tree. You're not running around. You're not on your phone. You're not stressing. Do all that beforehand. But when it's time and when you are showing up in service to your family, which is like the highest honor. I mean, wow. You're the oak tree and you own that role, and you know that is really important. She needs you. She's invited you there. Could she release a baby without you? Of course. Yes, of course. She doesn't literally need you, but energetically, spiritually, she needs you. And how you are with her can make or break the birth. So I just want to get across, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be intimidated. I'm scared and intimidated often. And I've attended a lot of births. It comes up. It's okay. But you also got to do your work and know what you're bringing to the table and be in your own body and know your role, right? You're not the one birthing the baby. Yes, it's your baby, of course. And she is bringing your baby here, right? And it will go best, and it will be the safest and healthiest for your baby if she is wholly supported to do her work in her home the way she wants to do it. I guarantee it. It is the most optimal setting. I can't guarantee the outcome, obviously, but the setup of what is required for her to do her work is what we fleshed out. Yeah, you're the protector. You're the guardian. And it goes into postpartum too. You're the guardian of the home, of who's coming and going. It's a big role. And it's also simple, which is great. We have more resources If you're interested, there's the complete guide to free birth. If you want to get into the intellectual side, philosophical side too, of all of this, if you want more, I have the free birth starter kit, which is totally free. And that's 3 hours of me just talking about all this stuff, more than just this. And I offer one-on-one coaching, two-on-one, if you and your partner wanted to break this down together and have some individualized support, I'm happy to do that. Of course, there's so much more to cover about your unique scenario. But I'm going to close with just saying that you can let this be easy, and this really can be the most connective, powerful point that starts the rest of your guys' life, really. And it's so beautiful. And I'm so grateful that she has invited you onto this track and that you found this episode. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to leave it there. I hope that offered some clarity and inspiration to you as a father and a partner, and congratulations. And I'm already so proud of you. All right. Take care.
I hope you enjoyed the show today. You can support this podcast by donating to it on freebirthsociety.com and leaving an awesome review on whatever platform you listen on. The more reviews, the more visibility the show gets, so let's spread the word of sovereign birth. We've always got a lot going on at Free Birth Society, and you can find out about all of it at freebirthsociety.com, at Free Birth Society on Instagram, and opt in to my newsletter below in the show notes. We offer courses on free birth, authentic midwifery, and the blood mysteries, as well as one-on-one coaching, in-person retreats, and of course, our annual Women's Festival. Our exclusive, vetted, private membership is definitely something to check out if you're looking for a community of wise sisters. Together we rise. We must speak our stories, claim our lives, and support one another. This is the living revolution, and I am so grateful to be in it with all of you. I'll leave you with our epic Free Birth Society theme song, Wild Woman by Aruba Red.
I honor you for the wisdom you held, the ancient traditions of plant medicine and womb magic. I feel the spirit of the ancestors as I place my hands upon my belly. This sacred portal will be honored. Eons upon light beams of survival, withstanding the eradication of our power by design. I will not allow the separation of our young to be forced upon me. My sisters will no longer birth in captivity. The picket line redefined from burning our wild women to paralyzing us and drugging our babes. Strapped down in a clinical white bed, drying up the milk from our breasts. Keep your needles. My family will never again be doomed to chase those dragons or your poison. We reject your fear. We choose love. Everything with intention. Death, ascension. I will fly and bring her back from the stars.